and
Yeah.
welcome to another casual convo. And
Mhm.
today we have special guest Tegan from Cosmic Creeper or T. Do you have a preference which you would like to be called? No, okay.
Anything's fine.
Okay.
Even creepier. Yeah, I'll go by anything.
And yeah, so fun fact, another fun fact, T has a face. Yes. For
Yeah.
those of you who, I mean, and she's, you've shown it on Instagram, which you're more active on Instagram. But I think for people who know you predominantly through YouTube, you've been pretty much faceless until
You
now.
know, reveal time.
Reveal. And I'm so honored to be the one. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on. And let us see who is in the chat right now. So we have, hi, Ange from Tiny Trinkets and Tarot. We have, hello, Rose Honey Ritual. That's Meg. And April from Tarot and Witchery. And hello to anyone else coming in and anyone watching the playback. So, alrighty. Do you want to, for anybody who is unfamiliar with your channel, your Instagram account, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro?
I can attempt to.
Yeah.
Yeah, for anyone who's not familiar with me, I am, I suppose, a tarot witch, meaning that I do both tarot and witchcraft, although the tarot definitely came first. And I'm very prolific on Instagram, but a bit lackadaisical on YouTube. I'm a psychotherapist by career, so that's intertwined a lot in what I suppose my approach is. Um, and I don't really know how to describe my practice because it's ever evolving, but I feel like people will get a flavour of that as we go on. But yeah, I'm
Oh,
quite
yeah.
an animal person is
Yes.
the other thing that people need to know.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Awesome. Great intro. Okay. So, shall we get into the icebreaker portion? First and favorites. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. So, let's start with the firsts. First deck you remember being gifted to you.
So that was my medicine cards.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I've still got those, so they're
Yeah.
doing really well for their age.
Yes, I know those. Yeah, I've seen those many a times on your channel, and it always makes me think, oh, should I get that deck? Like,
I'm a nightmare for that. I'm like you are with the everyday witch.
yes. Oh, hello, Benabel Wen. Nice to see you. Oh, we've got Martin from Tarot in the City. Wow, you got a crowd. Okay. So then how about first deck you ever gifted someone else to your memory?
This was really hard for me to remember because gifting decks happened a lot older and with everything like intertwined with each other.
Mhm.
So I had gifted like a bulk of decks the first time I gifted, but I definitely know there was a Tarot of Vampires. You know the Ian Daniels
Yes,
one,
I do. Yes.
because it didn't have the book with it, and I had the hump with using the app, so it was part of like a. I'm not using this. It's not got the book, so that and a bunch of full decks, may I add, with actual books with them, went to a friend who's got a shop.
Oh, nice. Okay. But then you recently reacquired Tarot Vampires, am I correct?
I have, and the book
That's
is
another one where because I also I traded it with someone and for another deck, and now it's kind of had this little bit of like a resurgence. I feel like in the past few months where I've been seeing it a lot more, and so I'm just like, oh,
you know you want those 90s
yeah.
romance vampire vibes, or like
I
80s,
mean,
90s.
I mean, I am a vampire girl, so I don't know. I have to think about it. I want to, yeah. Anyway, okay. So, first deck you remember buying for yourself?
First deck I bought for myself would have been, anything that my partner buys me, I ask for, like as in, it's specifically like, this is the thing that I want.
Yeah.
So, and as we share our money, I'm going to say the Wild Unknown Tarot.
Okay. All right.
Everything I had before that was predominantly gifted.
Okay. Gotcha. That would track Wild Unknown, a good animal deck, which I still don't have. I've never worked with it.
It's
Okay.
now, so
First deck you remember being extremely disappointed in.
Extremely disappointed in. Oh, this is not going to make me popular. I the Rider-Waite Smith.
Oh, you're on the right channel because I'm the same.
Yeah, and I mean, to give people a tiny bit, because this is the quick fire bit, but just a tiny bit of history. Like, I didn't start with that deck. I had seen it in movies, but I didn't realize it was like a thing. I didn't know how important it was in the whole years of my tarot experience until like 2015. And using it has always been a very flat experience for me. Not clones or clone-ishes, just the original.
Oh, same. Yeah, Pixie's work. I mean, no, you're on the right channel because I too will not be popular for it. But I've heard it before.
We can be unpopular together.
Yeah, because it's just, I don't know. I mean, and it's really interesting because whenever I use any kind of RWS based deck, I mean, those are essentially the images that do kind of pop up in my head. Pixie's artwork, in essence, so it's really interesting because I'm very familiar with them.
Yeah.
I do have a deck for reference. I can't say that I've ever really, used it. I just can't.
Sits there unloved.
Yeah, exactly. Truth hurts. Okay. First thing you ever started collecting?
Yeah, this is this is where the animal stuff comes
Oh
in.
gosh.
I didn't start collecting anything until a certain age because of money. And then when I did, I basically, we used to go to boot sales. I don't know what they're called everywhere else, but it's like thrifting outside. And I used to rescue all of the sad teddies, like plushies. So like it could be a lion, it didn't have to be a teddy bear. All of the sad plushy animals that no one wanted, but specifically like the ugliest ones that I knew other people wouldn't buy.
That's really
I was that kid. So I had like all of these plushies with like droopy eyes and and missing bits, and I used to buy them. So I had
amazing.
A very big plushie collection because they would like be like 10p. So
yeah. Oh, I love that actually. That's fantastic. That's such a big heart. Okay. First pet.
First pet was actually a first pet ever, like a family pet, or my first pet.
Whichever, both.
First family pet ever, because they're in a birthday card of mine, was a black and white dwarf rabbit called Bowie. So my family used the same names as me.
Oh, that's
and he was adorable. He didn't come to a timely end, unfortunately, but he was adorable.
Okay. Oh my god.
Yeah. He had a bad outdoor story. Thankfully, not my fault, my parents. So, and then my first ever pet, I was bought 2 gerbils when I was 7. Called Rhodey and Sammy. I was not feeling eventful that day, clearly, but yeah.
Oh, very cute. Yeah, we've had like a history of unfortunate animal passings, like pet stories on this series.
Well, at least I didn't tell it.
No, you didn't tell it, but okay. First movie you recall seeing in a movie theater?
So it was Pocahontas, because I'm pretty sure that it was around 95 that it came out, and that was the first time I ever got taken to a movie. So
Pocahontas, the Disney Pocahontas. Let me see. First celebrity crush.
This was easy because I don't tend to be that way inclined, but David Bowie in the Labyrinth.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Eyeliner, tight pants.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I'd only seen that movie like for the first time all the way through just like a year ago, maybe. Was it a year ago? Yeah. I mean, I knew it existed.
Yeah.
And that totally would have been my cup of tea at that age. I don't know why I never saw it on TV or anything. Like
it's like almost vampire, isn't it?
It's so good. It's when you really, because I was talking to Heather and Sarah, Heather Carter, Heather and Sarah from Central Ontario. And and I mean the things that they would reveal like certain details that I wouldn't have noticed for the first time, that were kind of embedded in the movie and things like it's like such a, I mean, it's adult in a lot of ways.
It's
The themes are
very adult.
very adult, and it's like, holy shit, like this is deeper than I thought it'd be. Like,
That's
but
the best part of the era that we grew up in.
yeah.
I know you're a bit older, but just those eras anyway, is that you watch it back and you're like, this is why adults used to watch stuff with us.
Yes, exactly. Because like, oh, okay, I get it.
I see it now.
Yeah, I see it. Exactly. So, were you ever interested, because there's the Labyrinth Tarot that's out now. Does that ever appeal to you, or is it too?
It does visually, but I
Yeah.
was, and I'm cool with pips, but I
Right.
was so disappointed by the pips just not having any ounce of sort of, I don't know, they just didn't feel like they had any personality. Like, if you're not going to make a shape, or they're not going to be Marseille, or there's not going to be, when they do sort of more like Rider-Waite-Smith pips, if none of that's going to go on, then I hope for something a little bit more symbolic. And it
Yeah.
did kind of have that like trashy feel, as in, because you've got I can't remember her name now, but she's got all trash and everything.
Yes.
I
Yes.
looked at the pips and I was just kind of like, The majors, awesome, but not
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Yeah, I hear you. First paycheck.
First actual paycheck was when I was 16 and I worked in a retail place over here called Boots. So it's like, it has a pharmacy, it does makeup, it does hair, shampoo, baby products, you name it, that kind of thing.
Oh, awesome. And then, first piercing or tattoo.
Uh, First piercing is boring. It was just my ears when I was quite a bit younger. But my second ear piercings, my stepmom rung my dad and asked him if I could get the next ones done.
Uh-huh.
And being as I'd had the first ones, I don't understand. He must
Why?
have had a moment, because he's tattooed and pierced, by the way.
Okay.
And he said, no, I don't think so yet. And my stepmom went, fuck that. And we got them done anyway.
Awesome. Very nice.
So a
Very
bit more
cool.
fun than the first one.
All right, let's see who has. Oh, we have quite a number of people in the chat. So let me see here. We have Tammy Ann. Hello. Hello, Lisa Stevens, Pamela's Insight, Michelle Craker, Vika Mirkwood. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Hello, Sylvain. And let's see who else here. I think we've got everyone. And I'm sorry if I'm missing anyone, but all right, on to favorites. A favorite hobby outside of the tarot.
I suppose gaming is probably my main deal outside of the tarot.
Okay.
And I know that people will ask, what system? And because people have things about gaming, it's not as exciting as it used to be. I used to be a big PC head. I played World of Warcraft. I can't now because of physical pain and just positioning and stuff. So not so much PlayStation and PC anymore, but my Nintendo Switch makes it very easy to game still. So yeah,
Awesome.
gaming is basically what I do if I'm not doing this.
Okay. A thing to shop for other than decks or witchy items.
I had to think about this for a while. I've actually spoke to my partner about some of these questions, because I was like, it's ruled everything out. And I was like, no, the thing that I buy most, if I'm not spending money on any of those sort of two areas, is actually stuff for the animals. Like, I'm big on upgrading their environment and buying them things for their stimulation, so much so that sometimes like the cats and the geckos look at me and they're like, what is this? So yeah, stuff like cat trees and bigger gecko vivs and more stuff for them to climb on. That's kind of where a lot of my money goes, actually, more than the tarot stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic, actually. And yeah, it's funny how much we kind of spend and like lavish our pets. And it's funny, when this was ages ago, we took Picasso, our leopard gecko, to the vet because he wasn't eating anything. And so Matt was worried. And so we took him to the vet, and it just turned out he had seasonal anorexia, but which just means, for anyone who doesn't know, that he was in kind of like a mating heat where
Yeah,
then
and they do not eat when they're like
they
that.
do not eat at all.
It's
So
like, I'm horny, so no food.
yeah, exactly. I want sex, not food.
Yeah.
When is that going to happen? Don't show me any food.
Yeah. Bring in the friends.
Bring in, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so the vet, and we were talking about, well, what have you been feeding it and whatever, and Matt was like, oh, well, I've been trying to feed it strawberries and this and that, like just these, fresh foods and that, or like, maybe not fruits. It was like, oh, mealworms. And then I graduated to like these insects. And then I graduated to that. And then, oh, the dubia roaches. Well, we've been trying to feed those the strawberries. And then we've,
Yeah.
tried the carrots, and we've tried so, I mean, it's funny because we were treating, the vet was talking about, wow, you treat your pets and the food of your pets with, so well, it's like, and it's true. It's like, meanwhile, we're eating like ramen or something, and they're,
Like,
yeah,
and they're walking around,
yeah,
so healthy. Like,
yes, exactly,
royalty. Yeah,
exactly, beautiful, yeah. Exactly. Beautiful living environment and everything. And yeah, like even the roaches are like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do the same. I'm like, look, if they're going to become food, they need to have a good life before. So they've got their own little spaces.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God.
Yes. I mean, it's true though. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. So that's right. On track.
This voice has a face.
This voice has a face. Yes. Hi, Heather. Oh, hello, Joanna.
Hello.
Your partner in crime.
Yes.
Okay. You should get a leopard gecko, Benabel. It's they're fantastic.
We recommend.
We recommend.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for favorite book. A favorite.
Because I'm so indecisive with adult books, because I'm awkward, I decided to go for a childhood favourite because that was undeniable. And my dad used to read me, I think it was by Enid Blyton. It's called The Faraway Tree.
I know that one.
All of these like adventures where they'd go off into this tree, and from memory, I think it was like magical, and it portaled them somewhere else, which is basically my jam. So
nice. That sounds nice. I haven't heard of that one. Was it written by a British author or a European?
Enid Blyton's British.
Okay.
But I'm a little dense when it comes to stuff. I'm like, it sounds British.
All good. Okay. A favorite movie or show?
A favorite show, Frasier. For obvious reasons. I love me some psychology.
Yeah,
I'm sad,
that makes a lot of sense. That does.
And then, obviously the Labyrinth for the movie.
Yeah. A favorite crystal?
A favorite type or my favorite ever?
Whichever you choose.
Basically, I love Labradorite. That's my, it catches my eye. I'm
one
like,
of my favorites.
Gorgeous. But I haven't got like the piece yet. And I don't tend to buy too many because of the ethics and stuff. So it takes me forever to find one. But I do have this piece of smoky quartz.
I love that.
Which has like phantoms in it and all of the stuff that I understand from a scientific level more than, the way that I work with crystals isn't very woo. I meditate, I'm very tangible, but I am obsessed with this.
That is beautiful piece. And smoky quartz is one of my favorites as well. So that's beautiful.
It's a great stone. And it's definitely my biggest by far.
Yeah. Sylvain is saying, I'll try to fit the phrase, I'm horny, not hungry, in as many conversations as I can. I'm not sure it'll go well, but I'll have a good laugh. We will also have a good laugh if you share stories after.
Yeah, please do. Tell us if it's ever successful.
Yes, please.
I want to know. That's hilarious.
Okay, a favorite guilty pleasure?
This took me again a while because we ascertained because I'm a strange human being, that guilty pleasure isn't part of my vernacular, because I don't feel guilty about anything that is pleasurable. But the thing that I get the most flack for liking, that in the right circumstance might make me feel like a tiny bit like, oh, okay, is Pokemon. So I'm a massive Pokemon fan. I've got like Pokemon toys up there. I've got Pokemon cards still. I play all of the games. I want to catch them all.
And it is, no, yeah, not weird at all. I mean, there's so many Pokemon fans. And I remember, I mean, just recently there was that one game that really became popular, and all of a sudden I'm seeing Pokemon all over again. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is so nostalgic. And I never got into the Pokemon thing, but it was, yeah, there's so many people who love Pokemon. And now, like, in my nieces and nephew, like they're getting into it too. Like, I was just like,
there's more.
Wow. All right. Favorite area of your living space or sacred space?
Although you can't see the best bit, because it's basically, if you go on Instagram, you can see it all the time, but it's basically I'm sitting at it.
Yes.
This is my witchy room. It has been other things and has had to share that, but because of the last few years, I don't see clients in person. So I've finally been able to, like, I had some tarot stuff out, but not skulls and stuff. Now my clients don't come to me. I've literally, like, I've got skulls and freaking antlers and feathers and candles. It looks like a shrine for something in particular. So this, aside from, which Judy already knows, the wallpaper, which wasn't my choice, and I loathe it on a regular basis, but it's a very first world problem, so I can deal.
Okay. All right. So do you find that you prefer the virtual appointments as opposed to the in-person?
Do you know what? I don't necessarily have a preference, because there are benefits both ways.
Okay.
It makes it a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
It also means, from a really very selfish perspective, because obviously you want to dress a certain way, and I get a lot of, like, part of my chronic illness and pain and stuff is from sitting. So if I wear looser clothing, it's a lot easier for me. So virtual stuff, I can wear something like a thin legging or whatever that I might not dress in if I saw my clients. But not being able to, like, offer someone a tissue, you know, if they're upset, and learning how to speak people through that is interesting, and it's like a growing thing. But after 2 years of doing it, it's no preference.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's really interesting because before it was always my having to go to the office, and with work, it really limited when I could see that person, or, you know, the therapist, or when, you know, when they could fit me in or whatever. And then having to move to virtual, I mean, it has been so much more accessible, and I personally don't feel a difference between it being, like, you know, actually in person versus virtual. So I think
there's minimal things. As long as you've got the space, they're comfortable, and and I can talk them through stuff like that. And also, it's a lot more accessible. You know, speaking as a disabled person, it's a lot more accessible, and so I hope people, like, carry it on past its immediate crisis need, because a lot of people already needed it. So
exactly. Yeah, awesome. Okay, bonus question. You ready?
Hit me.
If you had to pick between these two, which one would you choose? Giving up playing solitaire for 5 years, or giving up using the animal medicine card for 5 years?
Oh, I would give up playing solitaire.
Would you? Okay. Okay. All right.
I don't need my medicine cards to do any of the work I do with animals. In fact, they get used a lot less nowadays. But if I have an attachment to an over attachment to anything I own, then it's them.
Then it's that. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. On to the questions. And if anyone has Any questions for T? Let us know by putting the question all in caps so that my old eyes can see them. And yeah, let's get started with the questions. So, and you've discussed this on your YouTube. You had a video discussing your kind of like tarot origins. But for anybody unfamiliar, when did the interest in tarot begin for you, and what about it appealed to you? That was kind of in your childhood, right? Being just surrounded by.
Yeah. So my childhood, the short version is, and the best way to describe it, bearing in mind the time, because I'm older than I look as well. For anyone who's like curious, I'm 33, because otherwise,
You're a baby. You're a baby.
I know, but when people go to me, like, are you of age to drink? Which is obviously 18 in this. And I'm like, yes. Yes, I am. I still get asked if my mummy and daddy are home when I've answered the door and stuff, which is terrible. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I was around a lot of hippies, which is like a broad term, but people didn't really, some of them are witches, some of them were freaking shamans. I don't know. They had all various names for themselves. And I grew up around a lot of that stuff. So not just cards, drumming circles, various herbal tinctures. It was kind of the norm. So I was introduced to them from as young as I can remember, and I use the term play often because it's very different to using cards as an adult. Like, play with them when I was younger. My mum had the Medicine Woman Tarot, the Mythic Tarot, and the Medicine cards. So that was what was in my repertoire when I was younger. However, without boring everyone with my transition, there was a lot that happened in my childhood. I am estranged from my mum and other aspects of family, so I was moved here, there, and everywhere. And also, there's a lot in the spiritual community. There's facets that are very unhelpful and toxic as well. And I experienced a lot of that as a child. So when I had my cards, I think I used them up until I was like a teen, on and off. And then I predominantly really only used my medicine cards intermittently. And I wasn't as big into tarot because of how I felt about the family members that brought me into it and stuff. And then I didn't know that you could use tarot in a different way to what I was brought up in as well, which is a lot more predictive. And the cults were a lot more restrictive is a nice way to say it. Like, I do not like the way I was taught to read with the cults at all. Down to things like skin color and stuff like that, which was then very inaccessible, not very reflective of how I was brought up either. And I came away from it, and then I came back to it in about 2015 and realized, people are doing psychotherapy with tarot and other stuff with tarot. So it's a lifelong journey. Cards have always been there. There was never a stigma with cards for me per se. But I wouldn't say I've been reading tarot for forever, because I did read tarot seriously when I was a teen, as serious as you can when you're a teen.
Sure.
Then had a massive gap where, partying and drinking was far more interesting to me. And I started studying really young as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Very cool. And yeah, you had mentioned that your initial kind of methods of learning the cards, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to crack open an RWS book. It was more, would you say, looking at the cards, more intuition, and then the predictive aspect, but it was more about looking at the visuals and kind of using more intuition. So okay, so could you tell us a little more about that? I mean, did you find that process kind of difficult is it that you were kind of, since you were younger, you were just more playing around with it and practicing, or you find that
when you're younger, I can only speak for myself, but it didn't feel difficult. Occasionally, if I used the Mythic Tarot, then you had the really good book. But when I was younger, neither my mum nor I had the Medicine Woman tarot guidebook. And that isn't Rider-Waite-Smith really, that deck, in terms of like, it's not a strict, definitely does its own thing. So it wasn't, it didn't feel difficult because there was no sense of like, well, why aren't you reading under a system, or why aren't you doing this, or whatever it was. So it was fun, but the bit that I did struggle with was the cults. So commonly when I used the Medicine Woman Tarot, because I didn't feel hindered by that, that was a lot more of a smoother experience for me. When I got to my teens and I tried to like seriously read for people, I was using my Mythic Tarot, which I don't have, but I was using that, and I didn't have a good concept of the cults, and then I had this weird way that I'd been sort of trained in them, so that was kind of, I found that a bit more jarring. But overall, I just thought that's how people read cards, because no one who read cards around me ever said, oh yeah, I sat down and like studied this. Like people weren't, my dad and that side of the family are very study based, but like, you know, the average hippie that I was coming across on a daily basis, like, no, they either had, I don't know, clairs or whatever they referred to it as, or they tuned into spirit. It was so many variations. I just didn't know that people had ideas about how you should and shouldn't read.
Should. Yeah, I hear you.
You'd make coming onto social media tarot land really difficult as an adult, because then people are like, oh, there's this thing called Rider-Waite-Smith, which later you realise there's Marseille and Thoth as well. But of course, Rider-Waite-Smith gets a lot of clout, or it did in 2015 anyway. And it's like, oh, shit, I better learn this system then. If you don't, back at the time, it was like, if you don't know this, you can't read tarot.
Yeah.
So learning to like almost unintuit, learn a system, and then re-intuit on top of it was interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine, because that is probably not the path for most people learning tarot these days. Yeah. And what would you, now that you have been learning and now are familiar with the different types, a more structured system, do you have like a preferred go-to system in terms of, even if it's like the visual of the cards themselves, the decks? Or do you find that it's really just an amalgamation of everything that you've learned?
It's not an entire amalgamation. So things like, if I was to read a Thoth, not that I'm skilled in that at all, but I have a Thoth here to mention at some point, but then I would read it Thoth. But my general go-to, which I'm sure makes a few people a bit twitchy, is a bit of an amalgamation of Rider-Waite-Smith and numerology. So not Marseille, not that particular structure, but definitely numerology has had so much of an impact on the Rider-Waite-Smith bits that it's undeniable. So those two, and then it, depending on what mood I'm in, I will definitely allow a deck's visuals to influence me, because my opinion is otherwise I would just have one deck. Like I specifically choose it to let that layer influence me.
Yeah.
And then utilize those bits and my intuition. So
right. No, that makes perfect sense. And I'm very much the same way in terms of the kind of blending of numerology and RWS, and then just also whatever I'm in the mood to do.
Yeah, whatever makes sense, exactly. Because sometimes our brain is just tapped into other places, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Let's just take a quick look at the chat. Hello, Marlene. And our Isaacs, hello. There was a question. Favorite Oracle deck, T, from Martin, Tarot in the City.
Martin, how do you not know this?
What was you say?
Do you know what, though, in fairness, it has the medicine cards, for anyone who doesn't know why that's hilarious, because I've loved them for forever.
Yeah.
But it has hard competition now. Hard competition, which is and this lives on my oracle. It lives on my table. It doesn't even go, which is the Memento Mori oracle. Yeah. And it's not just because I'm friends with the creator. I liked her stuff before I was friends with her. So it's It's genuine obsession.
Okay, so bonus question number 2, if you had to pick between those two, would the animal medicine card still win out?
Oh, that's cruel.
Well, I mean, sorry.
It's a better question. Yeah, because I'm like, shit.
Well, this is Martin's fault.
Ben's gonna watch this and be like, oh, do you know what? Oof. See, it would make more sense to say the Memento Mori keep, because literally I can do the medicine card stuff without the medicine cards.
Mhm.
But you know what? If push came to shove, I think I would pick the medicine cards. It's like, until one of those cards tears, and I don't do being attached to stuff usually. Like I would literally, when people go on about fires and stuff, firstly, no, you get yourself out of the house. Secondly, no, animals, and then my partner, if he was lucky and he hadn't got himself out, like animals first.
Exactly.
My medicine cards have a very nostalgic link to me that I don't get with stuff usually. Yeah. I'm sorry, Claire.
And so if, because you've had the medicine cards for such a long time and they've held up very well, but yeah, when they start to, maybe tear or
but yeah.
Yeah, do you don't have a backup copy or anything? You do?
Oh, I do.
Okay, I was going to say.
I'm sorted on that. I don't tend towards backups because
right.
At the end of the day, it goes. But no, I've got a backup of that.
Okay. All righty. Oh, we have another question from April, Tarot and Witchery. What has been the tarot themes in your life this year? Stalker cards, energetic theme lessons. Ooh.
It's terrible that I forgot my card of the year, because I do have a card of the year and a rune of the year, but I'm also working with a card and a rune monthly as well. So the brain has ejected that. That's why I put stuff on Instagram if anyone's curious. It's basically like a journal. It's very intimate. But in terms of stalker cards, I have a stalker card and then also suit that has been on my case for around, I want to say 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's hardcore.
Getting sassy now. And it's not, I don't feel like I'm not listening to it. It's like, we're still working on this, dude. Seriously. And that is, it's the Page of Pentacles is the most common one. And then every now and then, dependent on the deck, because the Queen of Pentacles always comes out of the Marielle, which I don't mind because she's gorgeous. And then now and then, if there's a bit of a shift going on with that energy, I'll get the Knight of Pentacles. But the Page, it decided it was like my identifier card for me, because I struggle with those, and it was like, no, you're going to sit with me for like 3-4 years and see how it goes.
Oh my gosh. And how's it been going?
It's intense, because the way that not just me, a lot of us work with the Pentacles. It's not just the material, it's like the physical. And for me, I do a lot of body work around the Pentacles and my relationship with having pain and all of the crap that comes with that. So no surprise to me that it's there, but the work with it is hard.
Yeah, but that means you're doing it.
Yes, when it comes up, sometimes I laugh and it's like having an old friend come and like pat you on the shoulder, and other times, honestly, I could just launch the card.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, that's a great question. So when it comes to choosing which decks you work with, do you have a method to your madness, or is it again just mood based? You say that you have decks that are laid out on your sacred space. So those are just kind of your go-tos on the regular, but then how do you choose your other one?
So I have some that just seem to never go away anymore, like the Memento Mori. And then I will change it up, so it's not like hard and fast rules. But what I tend to do is see where my mood takes me, and then when I'm really getting into something, what I do is I keep those few decks like more accessible to me than the rest, and I will try and spend like a couple of months with them before I rotate them out for something else. But definitely it's a mood thing. Like, I never set myself a rule to like, oh, you can't pick that up, because I would just agitate myself.
Oh yeah, makes sense. And okay, so we were talking about, your therapy practice. Do you use decks in your therapy practice, or do you prefer to keep those two separate?
So I have, but
Mhm.
it really, really depends on the client.
Yeah.
I've never had a client who has mentioned tarot per se, and however people feel about it, like whether it should or shouldn't be a taboo. One of the things for me about being a therapist is not bringing something into the relationship that's like, yeah, challenge them, but not something unnecessary that's going to like add a load of extra stuff to it.
Right.
But there are some decks that I use commonly for people who definitely tell me that, or one way or another tell me that they're like a very visual learner, or when we're doing specific like emotional or body-based workings, like
Mm,
somatic stuff, then if they're that way inclined, and I'll definitely feel it out, because it needs to be, because I know I like stuff like that and it makes sense to me.
mhm.
Even more so, I need to check in that like it works for them, and it's not just, I'm really excited about it.
Yes.
So it's not common in the grand scheme of like
Okay.
hundreds of clients that I've seen over the years, but there are a few, and the decks, because I know people ask, and people won't know unless they're on my Patreon otherwise, is Soul Cards 2.
Mhm.
Not over 1, I just don't own number 1. I have used that a lot because there's not even any keywords on
Right.
that. So
Right.
it's the perfect place for people to like project onto, pull, be with. To most people, they don't even know that it's an oracle deck.
Well,
It's
exactly.
art.
Yes.
And then one of my people years ago really loved my I Am Power deck, which is affirmations.
Mhm.
And again, which is a very un-me deck usually, but it's freaking handy for people who need
Yeah.
that. And that's the sort of thing that I'll quite happily leave when people used to come and see me in and around the space. And then if
Right.
someone shows an interest in it, then I'm not precious about people touching my stuff. So those two have been really, especially the soul cards, pivotal in therapy. But it's just on a client to client basis. So when I get one, it's damn exciting. But yes, definitely not a given.
Awesome. That's so cool. And yeah, I mean, I know that some people are not like fans of affirmation decks, but I do think they are a handy tool in the toolkit for sure.
Everything has its place, and
Yeah.
it's all about how we use it. And I think that some of those people probably wouldn't even want or like it at a later stage in their life either, but like right then.
Yeah.
And I like to have a couple of right then, decks. I don't want to
Yeah.
just have like entirely just stuff that is my aesthetic.
Right. Exactly. No, that makes perfect sense. So do you know around how many decks you have?
I think around 85 in total, somewhere
Okay.
there or thereabouts. I'm not particularly precious about number, more space,
Hmm.
and rotation, because I like to use what I have,
Yes.
which is impressive at that number, but I do.
Yes. Let's teach us how you do this, because I know that I certainly struggle with that. It's like,
They might only see a month, like a year, or I have like 2 decks, I think, that I've got put to the side as like, I'm quite comfortable for them to exist as like collector's items, mainly
mhm,
because they hurt my hands. But
mhm,
yeah, it's just rotation and doing a lot of, I don't just read for myself, whilst I'm not reading for other people at the moment. If you account for when I have used them in therapy, when I use them with mates, the podcast, when we do
mhm,
readings on there, also when I do anything like on Patreon that's like a therapeutic activity that can be woven into the tarot. So
mhm,
stuff then gets pulled into my practice sort of that way.
mhm.
Whereas I think if I literally just read for myself, I would have to get rid of a quarter at least.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense. And I've been enjoying, because you were doing these collection videos back on when you came back on YouTube, and I was just like loving them. I'm like, oh, this is so fantastic. So, so is it that that was kind of when you took kind of stock of like the number of decks you actually had,
Yeah.
or Okay.
Yeah, and that's been really helpful. Basically, I've got one video that's already recorded. I've just not edited it because it wasn't a live one. And then they're done. But that's how I sort of looked at my numbers, reassessed a couple. Not many went out because I'm pretty on a flow-to-flow basis with things coming in and out. But I did get rid of a couple that were in those as well. And yeah, that's how I got my number, because otherwise it's kind of, if my space is full, then it's full. And my assumption by looking around my space is you probably couldn't get anything over 100 in here anyway. Is fine.
Right, exactly. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, and well, it's funny because when I lived in my tiny space, I had a rule like, oh, I can't go past the top tier of my bookshelf. Once
Yeah.
I filled that up, that means no more decks for me. And oh my gosh, that was a complete
Did you
fail.
go over it?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it just
Sometimes it means buying bigger furniture for the room that you're already in. That is
Yep.
around.
Yep. Definitely there was definitely an overflow. But I mean, you have said recently that you're at a comfortable spot right now. Like you're not really purchasing a lot of decks at all. You're very happy with what you
Yeah,
have.
most decks that come into my collection, I'm really fortunate. Like my mates are gifty. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if
That's
they come in, and usually I don't feel that one has to go out to come in, but I will always, when I get a couple come in, be like, oh, I'm just having a check around now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty natural. So, do you have a soul deck? Like, would you call the medicine card your soul deck? Do you prescribe to that, or just like a ride or die?
See, I don't know. I've been loving I love conversations on words. So I'll try to keep it short because I have too much to say on words and association. So I don't ascribe to that word, but more because of how I view soul. I like the way that Kelly from The Truth in Story does. Like she has a bunch of them. And for me, it's more about what the word infers. So for me, I would just call it a home deck. And then say that I've got not one, but say like 5 very home decks, because it's it doesn't feel like it feels like a really comfortable place to come, but not one thing feels full enough to be an expression of my soul, basically, which is just nitpicking. But definitely I have got home decks, and definitely the medicine cards is at the top for sure.
And then your memento mori.
My memento mori, my wild unknown, my medicine woman tarot, and I mean, really, I could call it that. To be honest, they're like my solid big game decks.
Awesome. And what recent decks have you been just currently using, or that you're particularly crushing on right now?
So I've already said the memento mori, so I won't show that again. But like, I think people are getting sick of it on my Instagram. Rotation, seriously. Not that I do it for other people, but like, people must think, oh my god. So my other one, which is not new to my collection, but just in heavy rotation at the moment, is what is it called? I'm terrible with names.
Is that the Ted Andrews?
The Animal Wires Tarot, and this is the first edition, because so they look slightly different.
They are, people are seeking that deck.
I know people hate me for owning it. I have a few decks actually that make me sort of envied, and I'm just like, seriously, it's just patience. I am very stubborn. I won't pay certain amounts for decks. No shame to anyone else. It's literally, I couldn't care what anyone else does in their practice. It's just a personal thing. And I had an eBay notification up for like, under this price. And when it come up, boom, I got it, put it away for a birthday. Like, that's how I roll.
Wow.
And, as someone who, if no one's familiar, like, I work with animals all the time. Both in a very physical way, like animals are important to me. I do a lot of like aiding the wildlife and stuff, but also in more of like a witchy way. And then the other deck that I'm just like, it's one of those ones where you try not to become a pusher of it, because it's don't buy a deck just because someone else loves it. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, don't do it. But the Marigold Tarot is, of course, my aesthetic.
It's so good. It's so good.
So good.
It's so good. Yeah.
And this is basically, if you could like get myself or even my dad and make us into a deck, it would probably look like this. This is what we're about. This is our aesthetic. I'm really into pippish decks. I find them quite spacious, and I'm really into animal decks.
Yeah.
People decks, I start to get fussy. So they're my two like big crushes at the moment.
The Marigold, you're going to make me want to pull that out again. It is so good. And it is, yes, it's pippish and beautifully so. It's not it's just so, I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. And I love all of that. I believe it's the Punjabi like clothing and stuff that's in it. And it's really just infused with the creator. And
Absolutely.
I have a bit of a thing where if I'm going to get a deck from someone, like I want it to be infused with what they're into, not just, oh, I just made a deck. Like I enjoy that. So she's I swear that she said she was making an oracle, and I really hope she still is, because this was about 2 years. Don't hound her, people, on my
please don't bug her.
Like 2 years ago, I'm sure there was like murmurings of it, and I'm like, I'm the same with the Brady Tarot is my other home deck. Sorry. Like those two creators are apparently making oracles, and I've just been silently waiting for them for a couple of years. Like they will come.
They will come, and the best things take time. Like in this time where, I mean, it's just people are churning out deck after deck.
Ooh, yeah.
As a cash grab. I mean, and it's clear there's just very little. I mean, it looks like there's not much effort or time put into a lot of these. Let's give these creators the time that they need and not rush them.
Especially if you think about people's responses historically to like whether I've got them or not, like the Mary L, the what's the one that everyone argues about? Is it a tarot or not? She does the Messenger's Oracle. It's like Raven Phelan.
The Dreams of Gaia?
Yeah, Dreams of Gaia. Like my friend's got that. I've read the book, and it's just like a whole thing of its own. It's amazing. Like they take time.
They do take time. Absolutely, they do. So and like with the Marigold, I mean, so I love skulls. I love skeletons. That is my vibe. I love them. And I have struggled to find that kind of skeleton deck, and I feel like I finally found it with the Marigold. It is it is chef's kiss. It's great. It really is. So highly recommend, but purchase responsibly, as Gerald from Tarot Staff.
All that good stuff.
Marlena says, I'm not an animal person, but the animal wise has been the best animal metaphors for me. Okay, that's how I see it. Yeah.
It's those bits underneath, like it's got the keywords, and I think if you're not animal inclined, but you're like animal curious or whatever, or just wanting to have them as a visual, but not have to like be, because I'm a nerd, like I spend hours doing animal research for fun. So if you don't want to do that, it's one of the most accessible decks. The problem is it's not accessible because it's in print.
It's not in print anymore. And it's definitely its own aesthetic. It's,
it's like what I like to call, I see now, to me, I don't mind, but because I grew up using decks at that age, but that and the medicine cards are what I like to call like 80s, 90s ugly.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's how decks looked. But everyone was like, it's burgundy?
And but it's nostalgia. It's like ugly pretty. That's what I call it. It's like, there's a charm about it, when there's certain decks.
You just have to have like sort of been there to have appreciated it.
I totally understand that for sure. So are there any decks that you currently have that you're trying to connect with but having trouble with?
Oh yeah, the Thoth. So again, so the reason that I got this again, the first time I got it, I got the very tiny version of the Thoth, and it was too small for me to appreciate, and I gifted it to a friend. But also, if I'm really honest, at the time, the Thoth community on Instagram were getting really shitty with me in comments, which I've got no time for. And I'm like pretty thick skinned, so
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me, but it was like very purist. And when someone comes into my sphere and aggravates me enough, like, yeah, of course they get blocked, but I didn't care enough.
Mm-hmm.
I just gifted it. But my stepmom has only this deck. She grew up with this deck. It's all she knows. And she only knows how to read intuitively, which would, I know, make the skin of most Thoth people.
Yes.
In particular, she has the Crowley books and she's read them out of curiosity, but she doesn't. She literally reads intuitively. And I was like, yeah, do you know what? It makes me think of her, although hers is like aged and stained, and it just feels like it's her, you know.
Yeah.
Out of a sort of a fun kinship, I was like, no, do you know what? I'll get it, and we'll like pull them together.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the visual symbology. It's very clever.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't enjoy and you get it in everything, right? There's purists in everything. So it's, but yeah, not particularly a fan of Alice Crowley, but I'm not particularly a fan of any of the original creators.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a point that perhaps isn't said enough. Like, it's not just Alistair Crowley that I'm not a fan of, but it's taken me a while, because actually it's just not an art style that I like. Like, that if more of them look like this, I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because this is my year of learning the Thoth, and I have I've said before that, like, I find actually the pips, like the minors and the just the minors, the more pip style, to be beautiful, but then I'm having trouble with the majors and the quartz. And just, in general, the art aesthetic isn't my bag, but and I still want to study and just learn, I just want to learn. And I have heard more and more people speaking out about, you don't need all the books. It's not that intimidating. And I don't actually find it that intimidating, but it's a lot to just learn. But you don't necessarily need all the books. And at the end
of the day, whether people like it or not, you can do what you want with it.
What you want, exactly.
Right in the air, but it is sort of like I will read the books out of sheer curiosity.
Yes,
but everyone puts their own layer to a point onto a card, because if you put yourself in it, then you're literally just regurgitating a book.
Exactly.
When that was happening, I was just like, I've not got time for people to be questioning me on this. Whereas now I'm perhaps even more thicker skinned, and I don't share my Thoth readings because I'm studying it slowly. It's far less committed than you are, because at the moment I'm doing much more committed study with the runes. It's like can you have Thoth as a light side piece? But
Sure can. I mean, I kind of am at this point. I mean, the studying was a little more serious, if you will, like in the beginning. But now that I'm, in just this kind of transition mode of like new home and just things going on, it is what it is. When I fit it in, I fit it in. And I just, again, for all the Thoth purists out there, I recently bought the Millennium Thoth, which is just it's cosplay galore, people. If you like cosplay.
Really?
I mean, it is. It's like it's a Thoth clone, but with a bunch of like hot models, like dressed up as the majors.
Brilliant.
It's like the best thing ever, because it's fun, and and I think it will help me to get into Thoth a little more, And so I've been looking at them side by side, actually. So I'll put the OG, and then I'll put like the hunky like Knight of Wands or whatever, and just do that. And so but it's interesting that I feel like, particularly with Thoth, there seems to be a lot more kind of the stringent purists out there that are just way vocal about what you should and shouldn't be doing with that particular deck. More so than any of the other tarot traditions out there, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, it's strange, but whatever floats their boat.
Whatever. It's fine. You do you.
Exactly.
Do you have any decks that you wanted to or thought you would hate, but now you own and you
I
love?
do. I do.
Oh, please
It's
share.
my Mary L.
Ah,
So I'm one of the people who, yes, unpopularly doesn't love the original Hierophant.
hmm.
But that wasn't what stopped me from getting the deck in its entirety. It's really funny because I freaking love the artwork now, and I couldn't tell you why I didn't like it, because it's like that part of me doesn't exist, which is the
Mm,
beauty of just any of our practices, right? We just evolve and
exactly.
change. And my opinion changed so much because I thought that this was the ugliest, most overrated piece of random tarot nonsense. And if Joanna watches this part back, if she's not still here, she's gonna be like, what? No, she already knows this. I'm like, what is going on, like,
Uh-huh.
seriously? But also, bearing in mind, because otherwise it's going to make me sound like really hypocritical, I didn't get the Wild Unknown knowing that it was popular. I got it before I was properly in like that space,
Mm.
and this was so popular and so thrust down my throat at the
Mhm.
moment. I was just like, no, I'm just a rebel. Like, I
Yeah,
can't
I know what you mean.
stop
Yes.
trying to put this deck in my practice.
Yeah.
And then randomly I started getting really intrigued by the imagery, and just, when I say intrigued, I do a lot of, like, I'm a very visual person. I do a lot of journey work. Like, I've done a lot of meditational stuff with people over the years, but like accessible meditation, not your traditional kind, doing stuff for people, short meditations as well. And I was getting all these like feelings, seeing the visuals of it on Instagram, and I think I annoyed several of my friends, including Joanna, for several years. It was like, if I'm going to get this deck, I'm going to be sure, because I don't like to buy stuff. I do pass stuff on. I have accident decks that I buy, but I am slow. So
Mhm.
I'm like, you can work with me. So I'm looking at it. I hate glossy cardstock because I just do. In tarot decks, I'm not bothered in Oracle. And then they brought out the second edition, and I was like, okay, so they've changed the card that I'm not a lover of, and they've made it smaller and less glossy. And a dear friend who had the first edition said to me, I don't want the second. You can buy it from me for the cost of postage. And I was like, what?
Nice.
So she
Of course.
sold it to me. She knows who she is. And I had it sitting on my altar for 4-5 months and didn't use it. I was
Oh.
like, oh my God, what have I done? I don't know what I'm doing. Then I started using it and reading the book. And then I stopped reading the book and I carried on reading it, and something just, boom, clicked.
Wow.
I am obsessed. It is
Wow.
one
Okay.
of the best people decks I've ever owned. So, yeah,
Wow.
big,
Okay.
big turnaround.
That is a huge turnaround.
Yeah, and I
I
will
am,
for those. They're great, right? Because I hated
yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't own it. I am still kind of in that camp of like
Old school. Yeah. Yeah, what is that?
yeah, I don't know. But you never know. Like who's to say that years down the line I might not give it a try. Anything is possible, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a well-loved, it's a beloved deck in the community, and I understand why for sure.
Yeah.
So that's great. Well, so you mentioned some accident decks. Can you remember one or two that you would call an accident deck?
Yeah, I should never have got the Spirit Song Tarot, because it's that's just not my aesthetic. Like, I'm not a very pastel person.
Mhm, yeah.
I There's a lot of artwork that I like, as in I studied art before I did psychotherapy. Like, I love art, but it's
Mhm.
the sort of art I would buy on a card for someone,
Mhm,
as
mhm,
opposed to have in a deck, which I've learned, like, that was a big lesson. Like, no,
mhm,
it has to be my aesthetic in a deck, not just nice art.
mhm.
Um, and it's very soft, which has a place, but the softness took me away from the animals. And I just remember, I think I think I got gifted that deck. My friends are very good. Like, they know if they gift me something, in the same way as if I gift you something and you don't like it, you can sell it, trade it. I don't care. Like,
Exactly. Yes.
it
Yes.
was 100% on my wish list, so it was not their doing. And literally, I got it and was like,
Nope.
"What is this?" This is it's instantaneous. Not gonna
Yeah.
work for me. And that's just one of probably a bunch. But
Okay. Yeah. No, I was gonna say that doesn't seem like it would be like a Tegan deck for sure. Just the pastel, like the softness and
no, what was I doing? But I have to say, I do that a lot less now. I
Yeah.
did and people watched me. I did a load of growing through my tarot aesthetic and way that I even talk about tarot.
Yeah.
From like hitting learning Rider-Waite-Smith, even though I'd grown up around tarot, only in like the end of 2015 to like where we are now. It's changed a lot. And I don't mess with decks that aren't like solidly attractive to me now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I think it's natural to want to kind of go outside the box and give something a try. You know, you never know, because happy accidents can happen. Like with you, but for sure, it's you can't know until you try. And I think it's perfectly natural. I've definitely been there myself, for sure.
Yeah, it's not preach.
Okay, so you recently began a new channel. Well, it's a podcast. It's called the Actual Tarot Podcast on YouTube with Joanna from Nomqua, and is it Tamara from Nightshade Tarot? And so, first of all, I've been loving this. So anybody who has not gotten wind of this channel, this podcast, look in the description box below. You will see all of Tegan's socials and platforms. She's got the Twitter, she's got the Instagram, the YouTube, the Patreon, and then you've got this other podcast as well. I think do I have everything?
Yeah.
Okay, so
you're good.
Yeah, so please do check that out. But I've been really enjoying it, and I wanted to know more about what inspired you three to decide to make this podcast available for everybody.
It was, I think we've always wanted to do something together, but it's a mixture of, you already know that other people are doing stuff together, and we're all quite mindful, whilst more than one person can do something, because I'm not that person. At the same time, you don't just want to go out and do exactly the same thing as someone else has just started doing. So there's a few, like, because I was already watching you three, you know, and Tamara and Joanna are just like massively dear to me. And so I really wanted to do something with them, but we waited. We, on our Patreons, would do joint lives together across our 3 Patreons and talk about witchcraft stuff. And we always really enjoyed that. And then we would meet up and have our private like Discord video calls. And we did a couple of meetups, the 3 of us, where we actually pulled cards, the 3 of us. And basically we did the Queen's exercise, where you pull, there's 4 statements of like the one that is you're most in at the moment, the one that's in your shadow. I can't remember all 4 prompts, but there's prompts. So we pulled one of each, and then we shuffle, and then you shuffle and have one of each. And we just had such a damn good time doing, and was finding that it was like, oh, okay. As we processed together, we were processing a lot more, and maybe even a lot faster than we would process individually. And we don't get to see, not people talk about tarot cards, right? You can find them. It's not like it didn't exist and we made something brand new that no one's ever done. But like, we weren't seeing a lot of people just reading right off the bat. You know, we shuffle on camera. Like, we wanted to do something where we weren't prepped. So also, like, you get a bit of, it doesn't matter how long you've been reading, sometimes you forget what the hell a card means.
Oh yeah.
You're like blocked. Like, I want new people to see that.
Yes.
And also because of COVID, and like, for me as an extension, because I can't speak for those 2, they were definitely saying about COVID itself, but I was already isolated a lot because of my health conditions and other stuff before COVID hit. When COVID hit, I was like, oh, I've been doing this for years.
Old hat, whatever.
I know. Like, it was like everyone became so isolated. We wanted to be that place where if you're a closeted tarot person, if you've not got any tarot friends, if you're isolated for whatever reason, or if you're just missing it, or you just want to learn or hang out, that you didn't have to go and find people to do that with if you couldn't. That you had three crazy witches that you could come and do it with, and it was just that. And then the reason that we did it on YouTube instead of just a podcast format is because we know people like visuals, so they get to see the deck. So it's like a win-win. You don't need to watch it.
Yeah.
If you want to see, then you can.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic because because you do it live. You could be there, you know, if you're able to be there, you can be there and follow along and do the spreads or, you know, whatever it is that you're focusing on that particular episode. Or yeah, you can watch in playback. And, you know, because I've had to do that where I couldn't be there, but I would be able to do that particular spread that you were doing or whatever in playback. It's a lot of fun, and it is great to, yeah, just kind of see everything come out organically as it's happening, which you're right, we don't get a lot in, you know, on channels, you know, which is, so it's very, I love it. I just love everything about it. So you have that. And then you also, I mean, we talked about before, you have an IG presence. I mean, you have a presence on a lot of platforms, and you have like a Patreon, and you were kind of a little bit MIA from YouTube for a while as you focused more on IG. So how would you say that Instagram and YouTube compare for you? Because it seems like you prefer Instagram. Yeah.
Okay. It's, you know what? It's not as easy to just randomly pop up on one of my clients' feeds on Instagram as it is here. And like I said, whether people like it or not, I'm not trying to completely hide myself away, but it's being a psychotherapist, having a little distance. It's different for different countries as well.
Sure.
Because I see a lot of people in other countries where it's really the norm for like their clients to just follow their tarot stuff.
Yeah.
It's not the norm over in the UK, and it's not necessarily that that's tarot and taboo. Tarot is heavily taboo here. Like, it's not safe. But yeah, it's just the cliches are true. The British are just a bit, you know, stiff. So everyone who's British now is going to be watching this and saying, but you know, so and yeah, IG, I love art. I love photography. It's a big passion of mine. It makes me feel really happy, really peaceful. So I think that in honesty, people get a lot more of a fuller experience of me on IG than they do over here, which is one of the reasons why I put on my big girl pants and showed my face. People did have an opportunity, but also that I was so psyched for you to ask me, because it's like, this is not the sort of thing I would come and do by myself. I'm not going to ask myself questions. It's hard to, on YouTube, I find it difficult to listen to my own voice. I feel like I'm in an echo chamber. And whilst ironically IG, I suppose in some instances, isn't that different until recent years, but before then I would get a lot of engagement. I was having lots of conversations with people, and that is what I want from a social. Obviously I have a Patreon and it's a business, but predominantly I came here for community, whether that sounds cheesy or not. Like, I wanted to have conversations with people, and I wasn't getting people do VRs to what I was talking about. I wasn't getting very many comments. So IG has always just been like the hub, and the other stuff is like, as and when I can, I enjoy being on people's preferred platforms so that we can engage with each other.
And I mean, because you do the kind of the videos, the reels, and then you also do like the photos. Oh my gosh, photos.
We've been chatting. It's fun.
Pictures. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the direction in which IG has been going. Do you have any strong feelings about that? I mean,
of course. It's funny because people don't think I have strong feelings about much, and I do. I'm just also can't be bothered.
Yeah.
it's a weird space. It's like I have so much more to worry about, but of course I had more time to be angry. Yes. I think that reels are great for the people who want to be able to do that on a platform that they already loved. I don't like the fact that no one sees my pictures anymore.
Yeah.
And from that, the extension of that is that they're then, because I use it like a blog, and anyone who follows me knows that I use almost all of the character count every time. I'm overly verbose. It is a blog. So it's like people aren't seeing that, and then that's when the echo chamber thing happens.
Yeah.
I do not enjoy that.
Yeah.
But I hope that will change with feedback, and also photography for someone who used to be so artistically inclined but can't because of like literal mobility, accessibility. Like I can move around, it's more of a pain factor. Photography is like a sanity saver for me. So if nothing else, if I have to revert to taking vapid pictures and writing nothing underneath them, I will do this for myself.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Sucks. They need to sort it out.
They really do, because they have been getting a lot of heat, and just need to be continuing to move in the direction no one wants them to move in. So it doesn't make sense.
It's like, oh, we're listening to no one. Oh, that's a bad idea, but
I don't know. April is saying that is so empowering about your podcast. What a wonderful way to inspire others. That tarot is messy, and it really is.
Yes, and the way that I read tarot, I know for me is different to the way that I talk about it, because I'm far more articulate as a writer than I am as a speaker. So I
disagree, but I disagree.
I like people to get the experience of both, because I don't like to, not that I'm suggesting anyone does, but I don't like the whole pedestal thing. Like, it's not for me. So it's like, yeah, you can see me fuck up, and I'm actually more comfortable with that. That's cool.
No, absolutely. Yes, it happens even to the best of people where, like you said, they forget a card meaning. They just completely blank out, or the reading doesn't make sense.
And you just don't see that on Instagram.
Exactly.
That's the bit that we miss.
That's awesome. Yes. And then April's asking, how do you manage so many platforms? That is a good question, because I certainly could not do it.
I wish I knew. I mean, in fairness, if I was working more and my health wasn't like it is, then I would have less time to manage. But it's become that my tarot witchcraft, which extended into a business very naturally, has been a bigger part of my experience. So with a much smaller client caseload, then of course I'm not doing the same amount of work that I was. So I've got more time to do that. But also there's a few things, if anyone's looking for like tips, I suppose, not that I've got many, because I'm not, trust me, I'm not like, I kind of fly by this, what's the saying, this, whatever it is, a seat in my pants.
Yeah.
I just hope it works out.
Yeah.
But like not being afraid to duplicate stuff and expand on it in a different way, because they're different formats. And, you know, if people who follow you on one have already seen it, they won't watch the other. And some people only use one. But also prioritizing my favorites or my time. So obviously it's like Patreon, IG, YouTube, and then, I mean, Twitter's a new thing, and I'm not enjoying it.
I tried with the Twitter, and it just wasn't working out. I mean, I have an account, and I sometimes will lurk. But it's really more that like somebody's sending me a link to a tweet, and that's where I go to watch it, and that's about it. So yeah. And then you do have a Patreon, and you've had that for a while now. And how has that experience been for you? Because it sounds like you really enjoy it and you find a lot of value in it. And I know that there was talk, I mean, not too long ago about whether or not to do Patreon, you know, with content creators, like, oh, should I, shouldn't I, the pros and cons. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your personal experience?
The pros and cons don't mind me, people. I'm having one of my hormonal flashes.
All good.
the pros and cons, I would imagine, are very different depending on the person and what you're offering. But I've been on there for about just over 2.5 years, and it's a lot more time than people realize of the finished product. So, you know, if we're looking at like cons for what they are, most people, you always get the random exceptions that do fantastically well really quick off the bat, which is awesome. Most of us are, especially like I opened mine the month before COVID happened. It was like February 2020. I was like, yeah, let's do this. COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one way to kill a business. Yeah. So I think that being very realistic about the time spent versus like where you're going to be financially, which I know people in these communities, again, not everyone, but it seems to be like everywhere else, we know that if it's a business, you earn money. It's not a word. And then it comes into those communities, and for some reason, sometimes it gets a little stickier. But, you know, so it's hours versus money is just not comparable unless you make it. So that is, but my tip would be like for people who want to create a Patreon, providing that you're very clear about what people are going to get on their tiers, and how much time that you can actually do to achieve that. Do what you enjoy. Don't do stuff that you think other people are going to want to be there for, because I've watched a lot of people burn out over trying to, and I'm not saying I've never done it, but I've caught it quite quickly as well. It's like, oh, I think someone might like this. If it isn't coming natural, because even I have like mega solid boundaries for other stuff, obviously therapist, some reason it comes to business and I'm working on Patreon in the evening and on the weekend and no one's got any clue. You can't even tell sometimes from the content how many hours has gone behind it. So it's like you have to love it because you're going to hate it at some point.
Gotcha.
Experience, and I'm not going to name any other names, but every single creator that I'm friends with has hated it at some point. Not loathed, but like, what the hell is going on, you know, or I'm so exhausted or whatever it is. So it's like it's a passion project in itself as a business.
Wow. Oh, that's great advice. And I mean, I think that if people are coming on to someone's Patreon, it's because they love your content, right? So your advice speaks very well to that. Like, don't be trying to cater to every, you know, Patreon patron in there. They're there for you. So continue to do what you want to do and what you enjoy, that because that's really why, because they just want more of it, right? So
exactly. And people are going to be offering the same things as you. Like our community isn't that vast. Like you start getting, you can call yourself a whatever witch, but eventually there are crossovers of whatever reader. So it's like you offer it the way you offer it, and see how it goes.
Exactly.
But it's an undertaking. I don't want to freak people out. It's just a bit more than people think it is.
Yeah, no, I think it is a lot. I've always thought that it's like, oh, that sounds very daunting. It really does.
Yeah.
To do that on top of making free content on YouTube and then doing, you know, Instagram or the other platforms.
Yeah, I take it seriously. I allocate time on my diary for it, and I don't post on other stuff if I've not done it, unless I need, like, I'm breaking my mental space up, and then I'll go and post like, look at my cat.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. We have a question here from Groon. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. My question: what is the last witchy Google search you performed? Oh, that's fantastic.
Ooh, okay. The last witchy Google search. I was looking up today the variation between Anglo-Saxon folklore practice and Celtic, because there are some crossovers. No, sorry, not Celtic, Norse. Anglo-Saxon and Norse, there are still some crossovers, but not as many. Anglo-Saxon and Norse folklore, some of the crossovers, and then obviously the obvious variations and the countries that they fall under, because they're two of the folklore practices that I centre in the most because of heritage, bloodline, how I was brought up, where I live, and I was curious to learn more about how other people were differentiating between it, because folklore is just fascinates me at the moment.
Very awesome. Very good. Let's see. Martin is saying we're a little more reserved here. Oh, in the UK.
Yeah.
A little more reserved. That's a nice way to put it.
It is. This is a massive understatement as well. It's so funny. We really are. It's interesting. My stepmom lived in America for quite some time as a kid into her teens. And I think that that's why I grew up in a bit less of that environment. Other Brits find me a little strange. Yeah, didn't you talk to your family about that stuff? And they're all like, no. And and it's my stepmom, because my stepmom's like, no, if it was your dad, you would never. Like, he's like, it's me.
That's hilarious. Oh, well, hello, Tammy Pie and Ivy's Grove. Nice to see you, and anyone else we've missed. Okay, so we're going to, I think we're going to wrap up here. So one last question. What advice would you have to anybody who is just coming into the tarot? Would you, because you started off actually in quite a different way of learning, I mean, the intuitive part, is that something that you would maybe advocate for instead of the like diving into the books? Or
no, but I'm gonna be not it's not a fence sitter, although people always call me a fence sitter, but I like my grey areas. My advice to people would be that, because what happens is you come into the tarot sphere and you get right with, if you're a beginner, do this. Yes. And I'm literally the one person who I removed videos where I even participated in stuff like that. Not because I hate them, but because my opinion has evolved into you are told a certain way, or you see a certain way that, like, say when I started, I was watching Kelly from the Truth in Story. She was like one of the first people I found. Now, if someone like that who you're really enjoying says, learn tarot this way, I honestly see no problem in that, because to me, I think the best thing that a beginner can know is the chances are is you'll study one way and then you'll study a different way and you'll flesh it out and you'll mess it up. And maybe you, like, for me, you need to, and this is going to sound like very therapist, but you need to find out the way you learn. That for me is the key part. Some people are really visual, some people learn really well from books, some people the intuition will make sense first, other people need the structure. I think it's better to just, whatever your friend is doing or someone tells you or that feels like it makes sense to you and is the right idea, go and do that, see how it goes, and then know that you're probably going to flex out of it, and don't get too uptight about the flexing out of it.
That's great advice. Yeah. Because I think oftentimes people want the shortcut, like what's the most effective and, especially those of us who are kind of balls to the wall. We want to just do it, get it done, get all the knowledge and be ready to go. But tarot is not like that for most people. I mean, I don't know a single person who has said that has been their experience.
No, me neither, ever. And honestly, like, learning the way that you learn is the biggest part, because I could teach people about 3 or 4 different methods, but if they don't learn that way, you're going to bang your head against that method for ages until you're like, I can't learn tarot, and either leave or try a different way. So.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that. Love that piece of advice. So anything you want to let others know about in terms of anything upcoming on your socials or the podcast?
Please don't everyone give up on Instagram. Just so selfish of me. It's nothing to do with anything business-wise. I just like Instagram. I will be obviously making more videos on YouTube, but I got COVID and then I'm fighting an infection, which I haven't coughed the whole live. So you've been looking very alert, and I didn't know that. after,
Oh,
but
no.
I've loved it.
Oh,
In terms of my two big, like, oh, this is a thing. I love the actual tarot podcast with Tamara and Joanna, and we do it monthly, and we will be obviously doing one in the coming months. So if people want to hang out for that, we haven't done the date yet because
okay.
they've got a bit of travel. And then on my Patreon, for those who don't know, I do a lot of animal stuff. I do a lot of, I call it tarot for self-development. It's not just self-development. It's like therapeutic stuff because we can't always just work on ourselves. That's not healthy. And a lot of community aspect as well. So it's not just individual, but I do mix my training in safe ways with tarot, and then I do obviously my folk witchcraft. So over there are some big changes coming towards the end of the year. I did used to do equal access. It is still equal access at the moment. I am changing them to different tiers, but new stuff is going to be coming. So actually only my Patreons knew this, but I have decided to create a tier that I have no name for yet, but it's going to be a support space tier that is kind of a space for people to come for like mentoring, guidance, support with their tarot practice, where they're at the moment, just in general, if they want to hold themselves accountable, if they want to talk about their craft, if they want help with some of the content that I offer and they want a one-on-one to like do that with. So it'll be like a one-on-one session as well as Patreon access. And that'll be a video thing. The only thing that I've put on there in like caps that is not replacement for therapy. I am a therapist, but you won't be getting a therapy session.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So, but yeah, like a space holding thing that will have space for a lot of different possibilities. Maybe we'll sling some cards as well. So I'm super excited, but those changes aren't coming until the end of the year. So if people want to get my content at a ridiculously low price, then now is the time, because
do it. Yeah.
we'll be shifting up a bit because I'll have been on there for nearly 3 years and it's time. But
Wow, that's exciting. Once again, everyone, all the links in the description box below. And I think that is it. I think we've covered all the questions. Wow, we have a lot of people in the live.
it was so nice to see people turn up. I was like, people don't know who I am on YouTube.
No, I knew people were going to turn up because it's like, because
what does she look like?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I know that voice. Now I have a face. So, oh, hello, Mixture Sway. We are wrapping up here, but thanks again for coming on. This was so much fun. This was amazing. And thank you to everybody in the live who has participated, everybody who will be watching the playback. And until the next time, much love and take care. Bye-bye.